بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of APM Terminals, I would like to welcome you all and thank you for joining our live webinar, Maintaining Resilient Supply Chains Through Crisis, which is held under the patronage of His Excellency Engineer Kamal bin Ahmed bin Mohammed, Minister of Transportation and Telecommunications, Bahrain. We would like to start this very interesting webinar with a welcome remarks and opening speech by His Excellency the Minister, Engineer Kamal.
Good afternoon. I'm so delighted and pleased to be with you today, attending this important conference call. Unfortunately, we are not meeting physically. We cannot see each other, but I'm sure all of you will get used now to conduct all your meeting by using conference call meetings. Allow me first to take this opportunity to thank APM Terminal for organizing this important event, and also thank you all stakeholder, individual representing different company who participate in this event, and for allocating the time to discuss what we have done in Bahrain to ensure a resilient supply chain to our economy. I don't have to emphasize the importance of maintaining an efficient supply chain for our country, for our economy, to enable trade, to ensure the movement of goods, especially these days, the movement of the medical equipment, material, food, to make sure that our people, the people who are living in Bahrain, feel comfortable that nothing will be changed because of COVID-19 in our industries. I think I can say that the shipping and the maritime industries proved that together we succeed to maintain the business continuity, to maintain the resilient supply chain, while preserving also the health and safety of all. And I would like to thank here all entities in public sectors as well as private sectors. We all work together as one team, Bahrain team I can call it, to make it happen. It was always an efficient supply chain in Bahrain, but even during this challenges days, and I hope it will not prolongate to months, but I think we have proved that we can do it together. I'd like to thank the APM terminal, the customers, shipping lines, all the stakeholders who are involved with us to make it happen. Today we can see even growth in Khalifa bin Salman, which is an important facility for us in Bahrain, important infrastructures, because 80% of the trade volume in the kingdom is entering through Khalifa bin Salman port. Today we see 7% increase in TEUs volume, 49 increase in general cargo, and 28 increase in vessel calling Khalifa bin Salman in comparison to the last year. So everything is in order, everything is moving. Our people are doing what they're supposed to do. And as I said, I need to thank APM Terminal for so many things they have done to ensure that all our staff who are working in our ports are following the health and safety standards, making sure that they have all the necessary equipment to facilitate their jobs, working together with customs, working together with immigration, with all entities in the port, the ministry represented in the maritime and port affairs. I think, as I said, we proved together that we can do it, and we have done it. I hope we'll continue working together closely. Today, I'm sure you will discuss other issues. You will identify issues that need to be addressed, that we can also take care of it going forward. So I've been asked only to give a few words as an opening remark to stimulate the discussion. We have good speakers today, and I wish you the best, and I hope that you will all overcome and come out of these times stronger. So stay safe, and I wish you the best of this conference call.
Thanks a lot, Your Excellency.
Thank you.
We would also like to thank our government and Team Bahrain for all the great things they are doing in this very interesting and challenging time. Now we will be having our panel. moderated by Dr. Christopher Hockel, Senior Manager, Value Chain Transformation, KPMG, Ms. Susan Hunter, Chief Executive Officer, APM Terminals, Mr. Ahmed Al-Na'ma, Chairman of Transportation Logistics Committee with BCCI, Ms. Iman Ibrahim, General Manager, Supply Chain, Fulad Holding, Mr. Balaji Ardanari, the Chairman of Bahrain Shipping and Agents Association, Mr. Omar Nasif, Plant Director, Mondelez Bahrain Biscuits, and Mr. Ali Mdefa, Director, Head of Manufacturing, Transport and Logistics Business Development at EDB. Once the panel is started, the Q&A will be handled later. So please, Dr. Christoph, I will leave it to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, for handing over. And welcome to everybody from my side. We already heard from His Excellency the Minister that things went quite well, and in our session we want to understand in the panel discussion how did that happen, and get the feedback from the panel speakers to understand a little bit better how do we maintain a resilient supply chain through the crisis. And looking at different through different lenses or different perspective from an industrial perspective, Omar, what were the biggest challenge you have faced during within your supply chain during the crisis the past weeks, and how did you react to those challenges to overcome them?
Okay, so allow me first of all to thank you very much, APM Terminals, for allowing us to have this meeting, as well as thank Team Bahrain for the close and continuous support that we have been getting throughout this situation. And though we will be talking about some challenges today, but I think we were really lucky in Bahrain having this close support and how the situation was handled in general. So the main key challenges that we had during that timing was related to definitely we are a manufacturing facility producing foods, snacking basically, and we had issues related to the raw and pack material availability, as well as some challenges related to exporting our finished goods, especially that we are exporting to 28 countries, among which are GCC and Australia and South Africa and some more Southeast Asian countries. So it was there were some limitations. Although we did not face the causeway blockage because we're exempted as a food company. However, for some countries that had limitation for visas for only its residents, so usually all drivers for trucks, for road shipments, whether for raw and pack materials coming into the plant or finished goods coming out of the plant, visas were given on arrival on the border, but as part of this situation, this was not available. So this has caused some shortages in raw and pack material, and some also hinges in the finished goods, our capability to export our finished goods. So this was also there were also challenges in some of the materials we get through sea shipments due to the delays that are happening in the ports due to lockdown in different countries that we source our materials from. But at the end of the day, we were able to continue our supply safely. I would just mention quickly what are the key things that we have done to mitigate these actions. Basically, most of the actions taken were really proactive, where we started in February preparing a business continuity plan, where we have done a risk assessment of the key risks, and those risks were definitely one of the risks that were there. So one key mitigation was increasing our safety stocks for our critical materials. So in some cases for local materials that we get from GCC, we increased from 2 weeks to 4 weeks, or for example, even exceeding that to 8 weeks in materials that we import from outside. So that was actually one of the key actions that we have taken. This action was not only for our raw and pack materials, but was also for our finished goods. So we also increased our safety stocks of finished goods, especially for the critical products that we produce in our distributors, and that has really helped us to be flexible in responding to any delays that are happening. That was one key thing. Another key thing was also, of course, when road shipments had some issues related to visas with, we were also looking for different other transporters that would have drivers who has the right visas that are requested by the countries at that time. So because this was not available for lots of suppliers, so we had to look for transporters who can take our raw materials to us. This was one action as well, and the other action was shifting some of our road shipments into sea shipments, and in some materials, light materials like flavors, we had to go for air freight. That was mainly the key actions that we have taken. In addition to that, we were also shifted to some backup local suppliers that we had for some of our critical materials in Bahrain, but there were some delays because they were actually constrained as well to other customers. But really, I would like to thank the EDB and the full team Bahrain. There was a lot of close support in order to overcome this situation and to get out of it in a smooth way. These were some of the reactive measures that we have taken in order to ensure our supply chain continuity, and it went well, alhamdulillah.
Okay, good. So understood, Omar. It was a package of proactive. You already started early in the process. You had some reactive, and what I also understood, it was a good combined team effort in Bahrain that helped you to overcome those challenges.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe Iman, from your side, you also have the industry lens. Was it similar at your plant, the challenges, and then how you solved the challenges in this crisis?
Yes, Victor. So first of all, I would like to thank for hosting us during this panel. And I'm just going to echo what Omar has mentioned. From industrial perspective, I believe all of us, we're facing the same issue. Because if I will summarize, COVID-19 is like the black swan, which means that event was unpredictable even to us and has a big impact, unpredictable impact actually to all of us. So the business continuity during the global disturbance is the biggest challenge for any industry. So if I summarize the main challenges, I can summarize them into three important bullet points. And the first one is the country lockdown. So as Omar mentioned, the availability of the material due to the lockdown, which we were facing for the country, and that lockdown was started from February in China, and it's extended to India, South Africa, to the West, which is Europe and US, has a big impact on us. Yes, we were having our predictable measurement and the contingency plan, but still that was we were having like a limited safety stock, which we were having a pressure to maintain the safety stock. On another impact, it was having an impact as well in terms of doing the due diligence for the backup vendor. During such a crisis, you need to have your backup vendor, but do you have the right time to do the due diligence? Definitely, it was very tough for us. And we need just to have a quick decision to go for alternative backup as soon as possible. Another impact in terms of the challenges is even losing the traceability of the material. Some of the suppliers, they ship the material, but they were losing the traceability. Where's this material? Is it stuck on the border? Is it stuck on the port? So we're having such challenges. So this country lockdown definitely was having an impact on us. The second challenge is the impact on the costing of the material. Some of the suppliers actually, they were sharing with us a force majeure letter. Either you increase your price, either we need to lock down our factory and we cannot live. So we're having pressure to adjust our budget and go on. Last but not least, the causeway. although the causeway was, thanks God, it was not closed between Bahrain and Saudi. However, there was a delay from the causeway, and it was having definitely a little impact on us. And similar to the transportation between also other GCC countries through Saudi, they stopped the transportation through road. So we were having like another option to go for sea freight, and definitely that was having an impact on us. So if I will echo what Omar has mentioned, yes, we were having some challenges, but we were having some measurement in terms of contingency plan in a way that we need to survive. Still, I do remember once we were having this issue, I was coming to my team and I was telling them, and the guys, you need to plan for protecting yourself from a bomb that might be explode anytime. So you would need to survive. Even if you will bleed, you need to protect yourself and survive. And actually, based on this KPI, which we bring it to our team, we put our protective measurement. And first of all, as Omar he mentioned, we built our safety stock. So some of the material, we put our safety stock, we built ourselves even maybe up to end of Q2. And some of the material, if the space is allowing us, we are putting our safety stock, which is going to be covering us also up to Q3. That's only depending on the shelf life of the material. So one of the protective measurement is to build your safety stock. The other measurement which we put it as well is the easy on the payment term. Some of the suppliers, they need your help during this time to let them survive. So by the end, you will survive. So ease your payment term with them in a way that you will survive with them. Last but not least is regarding building your network. I believe we challenge this crisis by building our network. Thanks God, so far we were not having any need to borrow of some material from other supplier, but we were having some calls from our steel manufacturer, our other colleagues who were trying to contact us to borrow some of the material from us. So I believe to overcome such challenges, you need to make sure that you are building your network with your suppliers, with your other colleagues, just to make sure that maybe by the end you will need them. So that's very quick summary from my side, Doctor.
Thank you. Maybe from a more broad, I would say, overall supply chain sector view, Ahmed, what was your experience in the challenges from a Bahrain point of view, and then how those challenges may overcome?
My challenges are great, Chris. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for having us or giving us this opportunity to talk a little bit of what we are doing at the Bahrain Chamber of Commerce and a little bit broader outside this. At BCCI, through 10 different committees, we've been very proactive, working with different government authorities to making sure the supply of food, medical equipment at the right time and at the right price. The other thing, I would like also to take this opportunity to thank the Saudi authorities at the Causeway for cooperating with us to the extent possible to making sure there's a swift operation of trucks, cars, etc. for moving goods and other things on the Causeway. When it comes to aviation, of course, as you know, we had the past few occasions where aviation industry was hit very bad. One was September 11, and the other one, of course, was the volcanic ash at Iceland in 2010. And of course, this hit is the worst in the history of aviation. And as you know, contribution of aviation to the economies is great. If aviation was a country, it would have been number 20 and countries GDP, top 20 in the world. We were close to, say, Switzerland. We employ over 65 million jobs. So from my perspective, from my point of view, I think we have to work with World Health Organization, airlines, and developed countries to find more swift and fastest way to test the coronavirus, because the way things are going, this will lead to the collapse of many airlines around the world. Yesterday, day before yesterday, we heard Virgin Australia's shut down. Also today, this morning, I was reading the South African airline is talking of shutting down also completely, and more to come. If there are no quick actions taken, an example of September 11, you can see up to now the measures or security measures that were taken at the airports to building confidence for passengers to fly. The air transport or the air travel was completely stopped post September 11. Authorities, airports, government introduced these security measures to letting the passenger feel confident about or with regard to flying, etc. Although now the whole world is looking for vaccines and medicines to treat coronavirus, however, I would like through this webinar to suggest that we find a quicker way of testing the coronavirus or COVID-19 at the airport, so all passengers that are on board the airplane are clean, like security measures that they take. Airlines are confident, passenger confidence, receiving airports are confident that the passenger on board the airplane and security-wise they are clean. We have to have the same measures now to combating coronavirus. We have to have a faster ways of testing the passenger for coronavirus before boarding the airplane. If we leave now things, the vaccine will take at least a year. The medicine maybe will take a week, 2 weeks, whatever. That will not bring the industry into its shape again. So we have to find a quick ways to build, to find ways to test passengers immediately before boarding the aircraft. So whoever is on board the airplane is clean, no coronavirus effects. So the receiving country, they don't have to keep them again or to keep them in quarantine, etc. So this is one option. The other thing, as we said, the airlines cannot sustain or cannot be patient more than this. Most of the airlines will be grounded, and unfortunately the world economy will be hit bad. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Ahmed. Looking from also overall, Ali, what was your perspective on the biggest challenges of the supply chain from your point of view, and how did they get solved from your point of view?
Thank you, Chris, and thanks to all my colleagues on this call, and thanks for providing us the opportunity to speak at this great forum. I think at the outset, just to take an even broader perspective and a broader view, a pandemic of this magnitude, according to the scientific community, is reportedly a 1 in a 100-year event. And what makes this very interesting is that it's all unfolding in an increasingly interconnected and globalized environment. Needless to say, air, sea, and road transport networks globally between countries are being disrupted. I think in the face of global disruption and a lot of the bad news that we've been hearing lately over the past couple of months is that the existing supply chain models of companies are increasingly being challenged, and all companies are being forced to leave their comfort zones and look at alternative ways to do business to adapt to the current situation. Be it full-fledged contingency arrangements, increased labor and workforce planning, extending their supply chain networks, and a complete re-evaluation of inbound and outbound logistics networks. Generally speaking, in terms of what the government of Bahrain has done thus far, at the very outset of the crisis, we have the government, and I can speak on their behalf here, taken swift and decisive action to mitigate the risks, to soften the blow and to lessen the burden on citizens and companies, individuals and institutions via an unprecedented $11.4 billion economic stimulus package, which is very comprehensive and continues to evolve as time goes on, which is the initiatives therein are comprised of the payment of all insured Bahraini private sector employees' salaries for a period of 3 months, the automatic payment of individuals and companies' electricity and water utility bills for a period of 3 months, exempting individuals and companies from municipal fees, tourism-related fees for tourism companies, terminating labor market regulatory authority fees, as well as doubling the liquidity support fund to $530 million US. Additionally, on the financial side, the Central Bank of Bahrain has embarked on a very comprehensive program whereby loan facilities amounting to $9.8 billion have been allocated to allow debt installments to be deferred and for extra credit to be extended. And finally, the Labor Fund Temkeen has taken bold steps as well to almost completely redirect their support programs towards the disadvantaged and adversely affected companies. I think all of these initiatives by the government in tandem with a concerted Team Bahrain effort have been passed to kind of mitigate the risks. I think supply chain is a very complicated matter. From my discussion of companies, the sentiment going around is that a lot of companies are kind of reshuffling their entire supply chain networks, whereby, for example, courier and express companies or small pack or small shipments. The tendency now in Bahrain is to shift from air freight to sea freight. And that's something that's very, very atypical, and a lot of companies are finding ways to adapt to the current situation. But I think a lot of what is being extended and done by Team Bahrain would really go a long way towards making the post-COVID-19 world much more tech-oriented, a much more automated, and a much more efficient environment for companies. And I think, needless to say, supply chain and logistics companies, manufacturing companies will all have to change and adapt their systems.
Okay, thanks, Ali. We heard just from Ali that there have been some changes from air logistics to also to sea logistics and street logistics. Balaji, you're looking more from a shipping view lens. What kind of challenges did you face, and how did you solve those challenges, and is that already visible for you that there are changes in logistics happening?
Thank you, Chris. Thank you very much. From the very beginning, we were quite clear that we didn't want to create any chaos or confusion in the market due to disruption in supply chain. This was very well understood by everybody. So we had to ensure that the ships will come on time, which we established. Having said that, our key concern was our bill of lading counters and delivery order counters can get crowded very quickly. I mean, as my colleagues here were saying, we were new to the situation. Things were evolving. So we had to put necessary measures in place to maintain social distancing without causing any disruption to our services offered to customers so that they can go clear the cargo and keep the supply chain running. Once that is established, we are not used to working from home. We always have to be in office, fill the document, verify so many things. That's the way we have been doing business for so many years. Suddenly we have to change the system, and almost today, as I speak, about 90% of the staff are working from home. So we have to make the necessary changes, infrastructural changes, security changes, IT changes. All these things had to be done quickly when the situation as it was evolving. And then, as Omar was saying, as the causeway was getting congestion, we have to handle the additional volumes which was available from Bahrain. Many shippers opted to go the sea route instead of waiting in the causeway because these shipments were urgent in nature. It has to reach either Oman or Dubai, so it has to be handled that way. But having said that, Q1, although we saw a drop in volumes from China and Asia in the first 1.5 months, the cargo volumes from Europe and North America did not dip. So Q1, the volumes were stable in Bahrain port. But what we are going to see with things happening around the world now, we expect and we estimate there will be a 15-20% drop in the volume from Indian subcontinent, Europe and North America in the days to come, which we will feel the drop to come in the effect from middle of May till probably June, July as well. This could have an impact on export volume, but there could be a shortage of boxes, and that will be a challenge for the carriers to be addressing in the days to come. Having said that, the port has opened up a new corridor which will handle foodstuff and medical supplies on a priority basis with pre-arrangement with all the shipping line to ensure that there is no shortage of any essential commodities in the market. These are the arrangements what we've done in the shortest possible time. Okay,
thank you, Balaji. And so, Susan, you're kind of all in the middle of that, I would say, with your port. How you relate to those challenges, and also to the activities you had or reactions you had to your challenges in the port.
Yeah, so Chris, I think for us there's just two things. So you can hear from the other speakers how important it is that the port stays open and continues to run as effectively as normal. And that meant for us straight away assuring the safety of our people. And I think thanks to the Minister for mentioning, but we took that so seriously. We are a critical piece of infrastructure, and we needed to take whatever precautions were necessary to make sure that our people were safe, and also all of our other port users, customers, subcontractors, anyone who was using the port was able to do so safely, and also without risking that it would cause further infection or cause us to close. There's also a lot of focus for us on business continuity. So, it's inevitable that we would have some cases. We have over 600 people in the port and many more users. So we had to have strong business continuity that said, even if we lose a shift, how will we still operate? And we took that right down to us being left with only one shift, and even beyond that. And then, even just simple things like, do we have the parts for our own equipment? Has our supply chain worked? And I think the second part for us is very straightforward. You've just heard all of the challenges that our customers had to face. And I saw our role very positively as anticipating those challenges or being agile enough to respond to those challenges, and where we can make adjustments that absorb some of that pain, or adjustments that allow us to support our customers and even new customers, as you heard from people moving from aviation over to sea, to be able to meet those customers' needs at short notice. And I think, thank you, Bala, for mentioning the critical cargo project was one example. We could see that for COVID supplies and or essential supplies for the island, we had to make sure that we worked with the shipping lines to be able to store them in a way that would allow us to move very fast and dispatch that cargo into the island. And that required us to work with our partners in customs, in the port authorities, and our customers to make sure that happens. So that really was the challenge for us, was to anticipate those requirements and be agile enough to work with our partners and listen well enough to be able to respond. So that's how we see our role, and that's what we continue to do.
Good. Maybe just one question came up, Susan. Somebody asked if you had to bring additional staff or technology in place to mitigate those challenges, or how did you manage that?
Yeah, certainly. So that touches on the business continuity that I talked about. So on a daily basis, we have more than sufficient people to be able to meet the demand. Now, any port, as you all know, actually has flexes in their demand week on week. So we actually also work with subcontracted employees as well to make sure we always have the capacity to flex up and down with the requirements of and the demands of the port. And then on top of that, like I said, we had to face the real reality that we could either by quarantine or simply by some of our employees becoming unwell, actually lose some of our people. And so we really went down to a name-by-name basis of all extremes of splitting our accommodation to make sure that no one, if something happened in the accommodation, we wouldn't lose all of our people. So we rented already more than a month ago additional accommodation to making sure that our shifts did never interact with each other and never actually came into contact. So if one shift was lost, God forbid, we would still be able to run the port, right through to extreme ideas like having to bring a whole shift to be accommodated inside the port in temporary accommodation. And we also work with the government to even look at are there any other options of people who could be trained potentially to operate our equipment. So we look at, it's not so much just about, bringing additional staff. We already had that capacity to flex. It was just about making sure our planning was sufficient and practiced enough that we could handle any situation. And I'm pleased to say so far we have been able to do that.
Good, sounds good. Maybe leaving the challenges a little bit and then the short-term reactions. Susan, what is the, I mean, we already touched a little bit with you on that. What are the main lessons learned from this crisis concerning your supply chain reality? Also, maybe looking forward then for you. So coming out of it, or still to some extent in the middle of the crisis, but already, I mean, it's been going on for a while. So what are the main lessons learned so far for you and for the port?
Sure. So I won't touch too much more on I think I've talked a lot about learning about planning. The planning doesn't always mean that we execute exactly as it was planned, but it means we're sharp and we've thought of a lot of situations should a new situation come up. So I think that's one lesson that I just need to touch upon and reinforce. It's taken a lot of planning for many different scenarios inside the terminal to be ready for the ones that could happen and ones that we haven't even thought of. But I think the bigger learning, and this comes from us, but also reaching out to China and other ports across the world and using our larger network, is understanding how dependent the supply chains are on each other. So we're only one part. For example, I can do everything I can do to keep our port open, but if our partners in customs or in the clearance agents or the shipping line agencies, if we're not all working together and taking those precautions, we can't operate. And I think what's really encouraging is listening today and hearing, that everyone has been in this from the beginning together, taking all the necessary actions, and that's the learning. We always have to collaborate and do that together, because we're only ever as strong as our weakest link, and there we have to be supporting each other. And I think that's the one thing that we need to take away from this, crisis and keep going and working collaboratively together. And we're so fortunate in Bahrain that we already had those relationships and that people are already thinking that way, and that the government were supporting us in such an amazing way. But I think it's a lesson we should learn and not take for granted should we ever face challenges like this again.
Thanks. Balaji, from the lessons learned, what was the lessons learned from your side, from a shipping point of view? Balaji? I think you're still on mute.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Well, we have learned nothing is impossible. Everything is doable if you have the right plan, like Susan was mentioning a while ago. Digital platform going forward, I think there's a lot of learning, because we never, like I said, we never are used to working from home. Looks like there's no need to have bigger offices if you can plan well, and if you can have the right infrastructure and digital platform. There's much more. We can achieve things much more better. A formal body in future, going in the future, a formal body like supply chain crisis management team, if we can have all the key stakeholders together in Bahrain, this will be a guiding team or a guiding path for any future such eventualities, which can be handled in a much better way. Instead of we were initially scrambling, because like my colleague was saying here, this was new to us. None of us expected this to happen. So if you have a team, crisis management team, that can give us a better understanding, and this will be good for Bahrain.
Okay, thanks. And Ali, from your point of view, thinking about the lessons learned over the past few weeks and about the crisis, what were your personal lessons or your takeaways?
I mean, from my interaction with companies, I think the sentiment going around is that, which underscores almost every talk that I've had with a logistics company or a manufacturing company, is companies going forward would have to rethink the way they're structured, in the sense that decentralization and for companies to rethink how they're based, even geographically. We might in the future see less mega projects, less consolidated logistics hubs or mega manufacturing hubs. We might see a lot of fragmented, smaller setups globally, and indeed in the region as well. So that's one key takeaway. And I think a lesson learned as well is to diversify supply chain network, lessening the reliance on a certain system or a route, or lessening the reliance on one source. So a manufacturer that has traditionally relied on China as a source of raw material will have to rethink now to have a plan B, plan C, plan D, etc., etc. So those are the key lessons. And just from listening to Susan, Bala, and everyone else on the panel, I do take great pride in seeing a lot of the companies adapting and working in a very pragmatic way to weather the storm. And also proud of the support that Team Bahrain is always extending to the private sector at all times. Another lesson I think is, which is something that has always been the case and always been pushed for globally, is tech adoption. That can't be stated enough. Technology in everything. So, and Industry 4.0. So that was the wave of the future. That's something that we've been focused on. But I think our hand is forced now to adopt new technologies.
Thank you, Ali. Ahmed, from your side, also some lessons learned.
Well, I agree with my colleagues Balaji and Ali Mdafi. However, as you know, the government of Bahrain was proactive in dealing with this pandemic crisis. We were among the first countries taking measures on how to control the spread of the coronavirus. And all the sectors were innovative and dealing with this crisis. One small example, our national carrier Gulf Air, as you know, their fleet are all passenger flights. However, they have commissioned some of the airplanes only just to take cargo, especially perishables from places like Indian subcontinent, etc. So these plans were very good, I think. It has helped the market and supply and maintaining good prices, etc. Thank you.
Thank you. Looking again a little bit more through the industrial view, Iman, from your point of view, what was your lesson learned, and maybe not only the lesson learned, how maybe will that shape your supply chain strategy differently from a long-term point of view?
I believe from industry perspective, you always learn the tough lessons, because you need to make sure that you are having continuous supplies without impacting your cost. So the lessons which I learned is never take things as granted, especially whenever you are dealing with your vendors. Because one day, if this vendor you don't need him, it will turn around that you need this supplier. So make sure that you are keeping your relationship alive with each and every available suppliers, because the crisis never will be stopped. Another thing, I believe in a manner of take this crisis as an opportunity. From my side, I took this an opportunity to localize as much as I can, because during the normal situation, no one, especially from operational perspective, will give you a hand to localize your material. So from my side, I took this an opportunity that I will look into localizing as much as I can, just to make sure that we are having our continuous of supplies. Last but not least, I believe building, as I mentioned earlier, is building our network. So building our network is a major lesson which I learned, because we need to exchange the knowledge relationship. In terms of the coming supply chain strategy, I believe I'm proud to mention that Foulad company anyway is for all industry, which means that we are looking into a digitalization. However, we need to enhance as much as we can our digitalization platform, because with the digitalization, you can stay alive. We need to work into more procurement intelligence, and definitely working into more of industrial platform, which we can exchange digitalization and all the ideas together without impacting our business.
Okay, thank you. Omar, from your point of view, also some lessons learned, and how will that materialize in I would say, the enhancement of your supply chain strategy for the future, to get it more resilient from your point of view?
Yeah, so one of the key lessons learned that will really impact our strategy moving forward is the way how we evaluate suppliers and we choose them. So actually, before it was really one of the key criteria of choosing suppliers is price, among definitely other criteria like lead time, transportation, reliability, and other criteria. But price was a determining one. I think moving forward, the strategy would lean more into other flexibility criteria like lead time, moving maybe our strategies more into VMI models where you rely on traders to store the stocks for you and secure the stocks that is needed. More proximity of the geographical proximity to the manufacturing facility is also one of the key things that we need to come into the equation much more than before. They were all part of the equation, but they will definitely be in a much more importance than they used to be before. That is one of the things, and that also brings to what Iman was talking about related to localization. So yes, localization was a point of focus, but will become an even more important point. Second part that I want to build on what Susan has been mentioning, also related to planning. So we used to have, in our case in Mondelez, we had a business contingency plan that covered lots of the risks that actually happened on ground. But we were always ready in our business continuity plans with what-if scenarios, even sometimes covering situations of earthquakes. But actually, if we look into what our practice is now, the proactive actions that we are taking now to overcome these scenarios when they happen, they were not as much as they should be. So what I mean to say is that the what-if scenarios always had lots of reactive actions. When this happens, we will do 1, 2, 3, 4. But we need to embed more proactive actions that we do from now, so that if a situation happens, we are ready from now. Something like localization is one definite example of that. The last but not least, actually the most important, was actually a learning that we had related to the way we look into the safety of our employees and delivering that message. Because for all our companies, we always deliver the message that safety comes as number one, and there is always very rigid, solid, and clear policies of how to maintain that safety, and all people are empowered to take decisions whenever they relate to safety. However, the situation here is a little bit tricky, because it is not the usual thing where you can eliminate the risk. You will have to live with the risk, and this is something that we need to deal with in a different way than the way we used to do before. And that brings a lot of engagement we need in order to mitigate the new risks. If you look into the COVID situation, there was always ambiguity about what to do, whether to wear masks, not to wear masks, and other things of what are the actions to be taken. There were lots of ambiguity among that. So definitely one of the key things is to engage the team and to make the measures of keeping people safe engaging and I mean active. So they would not be like rigid policies. They will be updated every day, and that brings in communication, the importance of readily communication to the teams and engaging them in place. So this is the key learnings and how it will affect the strategies from my point of view. Thank you, Omar.
Susan, from your point of view, you already talked a little bit on the lessons learned from the port, but maybe if you also want to comment on your maybe future changes of future supply chain strategy, what do you have in mind, or is there anything that comes to your mind?
Yeah, I mean, certainly for us, Chris, I think quite a few of my colleagues have mentioned it, but we have learned an awful lot about e-learning and not e-learning, e-platforms and things that are really necessary. So, I mean, if you remember, we are ultimately a supplier. So, we are based on being whatever it is, or evolving the port into being whatever it is our customers need. So as we can see now, there's going to be a build-up of resilience and redundancy into supply chains. That might mean, you know, storage might become an issue, the ability to speed up and slow down supply chains. All of this is going to change a little bit also how we do business. And then when you look at the e-platforms, the data, the tracking, all of this is going to be even more important for us as a port to be able to anticipate and respond to those customer needs. So I think, you know, it's not so much that, you know, we'll still be lifting containers, we'll still be doing the things that we do. It's just about being more agile and being able to flex to what our customers need in terms of, you know, what they need to do with their supply chain in terms of getting their cargo faster or slower or holding things. Or so it's just more about that for us at the moment. And then, like I said, this will evolve, right? We're about to see how supply chains are going to change, and we just have to be ready to be agile. And I think that's just, again, I know I'm saying the same thing as before, but that's the truth. No one really knows exactly how this will play out. And as a major supplier, our job is to be ready to make those changes when they're needed.
Thank you, Susan. If I just at this point maybe have summarize a little bit about maintaining the resilience of supply chains through crisis. What I understood here so far is that from your point of view, I think it's important to have a good network, or even if sometimes it's weak, to build a little bit stronger network. And I think, Susan, you had a pretty, I think, strong point on that, saying you're just part of one big network and you have to work with those people, because it's not only you failing, but maybe others failing that could leave also to the board be failing. Then I understood also from Ali, there will be technology. We need more enhancement in technology to work on those crisis situations. And I think technology always also comes with what Iman has said. At the end of the day, be more in the position to analyze stuff, be more analytically, and maybe do also some prescriptive or predictive, I would say, outlooks in the sense how things could evolve. Probably I understood also from Omar and from Iman, so for most of you, be more proactive in the sense of having contingency plans, so coming up with a good plan, because I think if you already have stuff in your drawer and you just have to open up and then execute a plan, it's a lot different than if you also have to at the end of the day have to first come up with a plan. This is going to take another time. I understood also about localization, work as a team, and also, as I said, have a plan in place. These were the main points I have gathered now from your all conversation so far about maintaining the resilience. Is there a major point I have dropped so far from your point of view?
Okay. No, I think that's well covered, Chris.
Okay, good, thanks. Maybe just before closing the session, a few minutes. We had a few questions here coming up. There was, I think, one question that was to the overall panel. I think it addresses also, besides Corona and the crisis, I think we also can see there's some was phrased trade war going on throughout the world. If that's going to have some kind of impact additionally to the crisis, how you would comment on that?
I think, Christopher, if I may jump in here. I mean, in terms of the trade war impact, I mean, there's a political element here. I think anyone who's been following the news recently has seen that, you know, between the US and China and where this virus originated from, and people are finding someone to blame or scapegoat. So, I mean, that will always be a lingering thing in the background. I think it's something we'll have to live with. It is what it is.
Okay, I think also, Ali, I think we're in the middle of the crisis. I think from Corona, so this is overshining. I think take bit by bit would be would be probably a good, as you said, it is what it is, and we just have to take it bit by bit.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're up the hour. Susan, as the host, do you want to have a few last words and kind of close the session?
Yeah, yes, please, Chris, if that's possible. So let me just start somewhere by saying, you know, I think here in Bahrain, first of all, myself personally, and I think we're all truly grateful for the world-leading actions that have been taken by His Royal Highness the Crown Prince and the National Task Force combating COVID-19. It's their actions that are giving us the environment to be able to move forward and really stand up to this challenge. And we're inspired by these events. And actually, that's what inspired me to have the ambition for this webinar, was really to also unite the supply chain community across the kingdom, to give us the chance to recognise, you know, all these amazing efforts that you've heard that have taken place, and encourage us to continue to collaborate further and excel in these challenges and opportunities that are absolutely as yet still ahead of us. And when you listen to these discussions, you know, it's far exceeded what I could have hoped for, and I'm really filled with the belief that this community can continue to stand up to any challenges and really support our economy and the businesses and the customers and the people across Bahrain. So if I can just finish really then by just saying thank you, first of all, to His Excellency Engineer Kamal bin Ahmed Mohammed, the Minister of Transportation and Telecommunication, and also his teams, particularly the Ports and Maritime Affairs, for their great support through the crisis, but also for hosting this webinar. And then to you, Chris, I'd like to say thank you for your excellent facilitation, and to our panelists, thank you for sharing your thoughts and being so open and being the experts that you are in your field. It's really brought an excellent dynamic to this discussion. And wouldn't be fair if I didn't also thank Finmark and our own communications teams here in APM Terminals, who have worked hard, especially on the technical side and the advertisement and the marketing, to make sure that this can happen and we have a good discussion. But I think my final thanks really goes to all of our partners across the kingdom, especially those who have taken the time to join the call, and also the American Chamber of Commerce who have supported us with this. But like I said at the beginning, this is a supply chain, which means there's so many parties involved, and doesn't work, like I said, unless we all work together. And I think this is a great start, and we've seen some great collaboration. So I just want to finish this webinar by saying thank you for your time, thank you for joining, thank you for speaking, and thank you for your continued support. And please stay safe, and I look forward to continuing to work together.
Thank you, Susan.
I think that ends us here then.